Hey everyone, Tony Winston here, Jazz Piano College, doing a little Latin song. You know, I just got back from 6 weeks in Portugal, and on the very last day I was listening to some musicians playing at a little restaurant, and they played a lot of Antonio Carlos Jobim, partly because I was requesting it, but that's what they started off with also.
Você, Dindi, que a coisinha mais linda que existe. Você não existe, Dindi. Olha, adivinha. Don't you know, Dindi? I'll be without you, Dindi.
And they also did this song, which I did not request, and I don't know if I've ever covered it before, but it's called Dindi, and I know it's spelled D-I-N-D-I, but you know that, and I learned a little bit about this, that sometimes those letters aren't pronounced the way they look. So anyway, Dindi is kind of the rough pronunciation of it, and kind of very, very nice intro here between E flat and D flat major. But then when it gets to C and A minor and D minor and G, it doesn't really lead that directly into E flat. You know, I didn't look up on the internet to hear how anybody else might have handled that. I just go from G7 right into the E flat. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about these two chords, E flat major 7th and D flat major 7th, and how we would create melody if we get called upon to play a solo. Hopefully we won't, but if we get called on to play a solo, we need to know the major scale, and also in D flat, the major scale. However, we're not going to use the 4th note of the scale. We're going to sharp the 4th note of the scale. All right, so it has that note in common with E flat, and this is very typical. If you have a song that's in a particular key, like E flat, and you get a major 7th chord that's not E flat, like D flat, you would typically play what's called Lydian mode, which is just the major scale, except you sharp the 4th. Right, the 4th is there, so if you sharp it, it's there. Okay, and then you can use that scale, those two scales, to improvise. And notice, those 5 notes are in both scales. So you can kind of keep thinking in the key of E flat. Except right here, you would have a D flat, whereas here you would have D. All right, so pick up the song. It says slow bossa. Now, right? And if you're playing solo piano, it's okay to go, or variations on that. Something like that. And also just playing half notes. And occasionally putting that little bump boom in there gives it the feeling of a bossa nova. If you've got a drummer or a bass player, don't do that, but for solo piano, it's fine, in my opinion. All right, so let's see, what can we do? We want to play the bass line and put some rhythm in with our right hand, so Right, and then we take it to the bridge, which is on the next page. You'll notice that I played the rhythm down here when the right hand wasn't very busy, just had a single, like a long note, like this dotted half note. But here, I didn't do that very well. Yeah, the rhythm there, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and I don't know why that little syncopation there with the dotted 8th and the 16th. What would that be? It's kind of like a quarter note triplet. It just seems kind of wrong to me. I would just go like, yeah. If anybody understands what the purpose of those dotted 8th notes with the 16th note that's tied, yeah, let me know, because it doesn't make much sense to me. Now, a couple little harmonic things here. As we do this 2-5-1 from B flat to E flat to A flat, we can use the A flat major scale. And here, I said, you should use the Lydian mode if it's not E flat major. But I'm going to go back on my word here, because a 2-5-1 going into A flat, it feels like we're in A flat, so we could do Lydian, but I think the major scale is okay too. And what we're going to do is the bebop scale. It's got that extra note right in there. Add a few extra ones like I did there if you're improvising. Also, when you get to this minor, bass players would go to the D flat there, because it's like a D flat 7th, calling the A flat a 1 chord temporarily, 1 chord to the 4 chord. All right, and that's kind of that backdoor 2-5 to get to E flat again. All right, it's not important if you don't understand it, but anyway, that's just a possibility there, from A flat major 7th to D flat. It's really the same chord. Basically. Now, so many songs, you should learn this little pattern here. So many songs, they'll go to the bridge up a third, and how do they get there? Is they do a 2-5-1, and the reason that works so well is when you go to A minor 7 flat 5, you can keep that E flat on top. All right, so kind of the key of the song relates to the bridge, which is kind of in a different key. And here we are. Now that may sound like an odd change to you, but it's real easy to understand, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, the rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 2. Okay, so how can you analyze that E flat minor 6? Check this out. E flat minor 6, I'm going to invert it. I'm going to put a D down underneath of it. We have a D7 with a flat 9 and a flat 13, so it's a D flat altered dominant chord. And, that's a typical place to go from G minor. Right? Back and forth. Right? So yeah, I can go to E flat just as easily as a bass note, But as far as, how do you improvise over it? The same way that you would improvise over a D altered. That's an altered scale there. It's actually E flat minor melodic ascending, and of course it's they're playing an E flat chord, so that makes sense. All right. So that's the scale you would use. So let's look for the common notes. So not too many there, just the B flat. Yeah, those are common up there. So see, you got to kind of know where the little differences are so you can blend the lines together. Let's look up here too. So G minor could be like that. There's not much melody there to guide us as to really the appropriate G minor scale. It could be harmonic minor. But suppose we wanted to find notes that are also in E flat minor 6. So those. So that might work for G minor too. Yeah, I think just like that is good enough. So from here to there. And then it's the same thing in F minor. Do the same analysis. Right? So that, look how close it is to like a C7th, and you can analyze it and play on it the same way on a C dominant 7th if it was an altered chord. Like that. You'd be doing the C sharp minor melodic ascending, which is cheap tricks, just cheap tricks. That's all they are. I just love this structure. All right, structure is important in your life. Reading charts. So, I think of it as a 1-4-5, even though it's not that on the chord, but in F it's a 1-4-5. So it's just that kind of pattern. There's several of them that works. You can do those right there. Even that might work. Because we're using Lydian mode, so the G is okay. Pentatonic scales. Let's see, A flat pentatonic maybe? Yeah, E flat pentatonic? Yeah. E flat again. Or B flat. Okay, I'm practicing on your time. You should be turning that video off of at least 30 seconds ago and go work on this song. The description has a link to the chart. And if I've done a previous video, I'll link to that as well. Thank you all for tuning in. See you again soon.